Good morning. I am going to be doing a couple of video clips. I'll try to keep them short so that you guys can take breaks between them without any loss of continuity. And these video clips, June 18, 2020, are going to involve the concepts that are embedded in Chapter 2, number 1. So we'll build a map for Chapter 2. In a second video, I'll introduce you to the use of STATCRUNCH, which is our statistical calculator in Pearson. And we'll be using the calculator to build data sets and then apply the tools that are embedded in STATCRUNCH for use with categorical variables in Chapter 2. Be them building pie charts, graph charts, or building frequency tables and contingency tables. So I'll be demonstrating pretty much every aspect of StatCrunch use, computational use in the app for Chapter 2. I hope that then enables you to complete Exam 1 sometime over the next 10 days or so. And in particular, the material having to do with Chapter 2. I've already embedded and sent announcements with videos for all of Chapter 1. Later this afternoon, I will also check on your questions, and I hope to see you for a little bit this afternoon. And so here we go. I'm going to share a screen. I'm going to share a whiteboard. And this is going to be the map for Chapter 2. Concept map. So this is an outline, essentially, of all the things that we're going to cover in Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is about 2 activities: displaying and describing. And what we will be displaying and describing are what are called categorical variables. You may recall that when we were discussing Chapter 1, we said that our inputs into our thinking process are called data. And what we do with data is we run them through concepts, tools, methods, models, and these concepts, tools, methods, and models that we introduce in our class are going to then lead to statistics. And statistics are numerical adjectives. So they are numbers that describe and sometimes even offer us insights into our data. Just to recall, data is information plus a y plus a who and a what, which is what we call structure, plus where and a when, which is what we call context. And when we were talking about what, we said what are described or what are placed in columns of a data table, and that there are 2 kinds of columns. Some columns can be categorical, and other columns can be quantitative. And in fact, we call those columns variables. And so in Chapter 2, we exclusively deal with categorical variables. And then in the future chapters 3 and 4, those are going to be our lecture topics for the week of June 22 and of exam 2. We will be talking about quantitative variables. So the computational aspects of exam 1 are on chapter 2, whereas the computational aspects of quantitative variables are going to be covered in exam 2 rather than exam 1. So our focus today is on categorical data. And in chapter 2, we display and we describe categorical data. So we're going to go over concepts and tools that allow us to compute statistics for categorical data. That'll be our objective, our goal. So let me take a picture of this and clean it up and move it to a PowerPoint slide that I'll attach to this particular announcement with this video clip. So here we go. What is a categorical variable? It is data that describe a type or kind of characteristic. It is self-explanatory. In other words, it doesn't come in units of measurement. It is self-explanatory in language form. So usually categorical variables are words. Examples of categorical variable: student ID, California driver's license. These are called identifiers. These are examples of identifiers. Identifiers are labels that are unique to individual observations. So that's one kind of categorical data. Identifiers are not only referred to as categorical, but they're referred to as categorical nominal variables. In other words, they're just labels or names. They don't have any particular order necessarily to them. Okay, social security numbers, alien identification numbers, passport numbers, anything that identifies individual objects, a parcel number in a property tax roll for homes, things like that. Okay, so that's one kind of example. And those are the most specific types of categorical variables. Another kind of categorical variable would be something like gender, something that has a spectrum of possibility, a list of any kind. event. And these are called just categorical nominal. They're not identifiers because they are not unique to one person. Many people can share the same gender. Many people can share the same attribute, like brown eyes, or many people can have mustache or no mustache. Those are the kinds of variables that are categorical. Okay. An amount of money, an amount of weight, an amount of time, all those are not categorical variables. Those are quantitative, and we'll talk about them next week. For the rest of this week, we're going to focus on these kinds of categorical variables. The third is a ranking or a rating, like how many stars you give, or an intensity of preference metric. There's something known as a Likert scale. And a Likert scale is when you are asked in a survey how strongly you feel in favor or against an issue, and you're to put that strength of your preferences in a scale of 1 to 7 or 1 to 5. Usually it's an odd number so that you can have a middle of the road opinion, which means that you're neither here nor there, that you're kind of like indifferent between things. These are called categorical ordinal because they imply order. They can be sorted. They go from low to high or from high to low. So those are the three kinds of categorical variables. Okay, so that's what a categorical variable is, or those are the kinds of categorical variables. Okay. What are we going to do with categorical variables, with data that are in categorical form? What we're going to do with categorical data is find out what it is that we can measure about those categorical variables. So what can we measure? About a collection of observations. Or cases, or responses from a survey, or what is it that we can measure? And there are only a very select few things that we can measure. We can basically answer the following question. We can answer how often categories repeat. And so the nature of statistics for categorical variables is going to be that we're either looking at counts of how many times we observe a specific variety of a category, and percentages. When we put that categorical count in relation to a benchmark, in relation to a benchmark value. Okay. So usually we referred to these counts as object counts, and we usually refer to the percentages as object counts divided by benchmark counts. So that'll be the nature of our statistics that arise from these kinds of categorical variables. They will be counts and they will be percentages. Okay, so are there different kinds of counts? Are there different kinds of percentages? The answer is yes, absolutely. So we're going to see two different cases in chapter 2. Case number 1 in chapter 2 is going to be the case of one categorical variable. And case number 2 is going to be two paired categories. And the key is, notice how there's this word here, paired. And what we're going to look at when we look at paired categories is not only at counting how often each categorization occurs, but also how the two categorizations basically interweave with each other. And that's going to help us measure association as opposed to just frequency. Okay. So the kinds of counts that we're going to measure are going to be called frequency counts in one variable, and relative frequency percentages. And these are going to be displayed in the form of pie charts or in the form of bar graphs. Usually we use pie charts when the data are nominal. But if the data are ordinal, we use bar graphs, because then we can use the horizontal axis to maintain the order of the categorizations. So this is how we describe and this is how we display. So there are two sets of activities that we will learn in StatCrunch. One set of activities that we learn to do in StatCrunch is StatCrunch will help us do counting. So one sequence of commands we will learn is from the menu of stat in StatCrunch. And there are two activities. So we will learn two different sequences in StatCrunch for this particular case. And then we're also going to learn about display commands, which are under the graph menu. So we're going to learn how to graph pies, and we're going to learn how to graph bars. So that'll be one set of activities that we'll engage in one video, in a separate video. That'll be called case 1 video. And then for case 2 video, we're going to learn that when you have two paired variables, what we can describe are frequency counts, and these are usually called marginal counts. in this context. And then we also learn about contingency counts, which are counts of a pair of categorizations. And we also learn about relative frequency counts, although in this context, they are referred to as marginal percentages. And last but not least, we have counts from the contingency counts. We have what are called conditional percentages. And we're going to be learning how to display graphs from these. And the graphs are usually in the form of stacked bars, split bars, and multiple pies. And the command sequences that we are going to learn to employ are going to be stat tables, contingency with summary, as well as stat tables contingency with data on some occasions. And the graphing tools that we're going to be using are graph, chart of columns of data. So these are the two cases, and for each case we will be creating a separate video because this one's already getting a bit too long, and I don't want you guys to feel extraordinarily bored out of your minds listening to one video without break. So thank you for the time, and I hope you watch this video and many others that should help with your course content.